Welcome to the Dedicated Sportsman Podcast. This is the seventh episode of the podcast. This is the day this releases. It'll be July 1st. So happy 4th of July, going into the 4th of July weekend. Been doing some fishing, getting ready for deer season as well on the off times there. Getting some trail cameras out. Just got back a little while ago from fishing. Only caught one largemouth. I lost a pretty nice tiger muskie right by the boat. First one I've hooked into it this week. Not as many there as well. There's some there, but they're a little bit harder to find. Dominantly a bass lake, mostly largemouth. Does have some smallies, but they're kayak fishing out there today. I'm diving into the world of kayak fishing tournaments, so I'm gonna be in the July statewide kayak bass fishing tournament contest that's going to be starting here this weekend that this podcast actually releases. I'll be out on the water. Hopefully, I'll be able to enter some nice fish into that contest. On today's episode, we're joined by Jerry Lannen from Pennsylvania. We'll be diving into some topics about predator hunting. It's a pretty good conversation that we were able to have about where to find coyotes, what to look for when you're looking for places where coyotes like to hang out, where they like to bed up and stuff like that. And talked about how to get in close to them and stuff, and how to call them in, different tactics to use, different times of the year. Dove into a little bit of fox and bobcat calling too, but a lot harder to do those two. So mainly talked about coyotes. Hope you guys enjoy the episode. Been following along with us for any length of time, give us a review. Really appreciate it. Help us, be able to expand our audience. Seems like every episode we publish, we have a couple more listeners that are jumping on and listening. So it seems like we're starting to reach more people as we publish new episodes. So that's good. Anyways, thanks for the support if you have been listening. Okay, today on the line I have with me Jerry Lannen. How are you doing today, Jerry?
Good. How you doing? Good. Good.
So for everybody that's listening that might not know who you are, I'll just give a quick brief introduction.
Oh yeah. Yep. I'm from pretty much central Pennsylvania. I've been predator hunting here for over 20 years and been through the industry on pro staffs from Predator Quest TV, from Johnny Stewart Hunter Specialties, and just been around for a while. Just enjoying predator hunting here and learning and teaching everybody, or teaching or learning a lot and trying to teach everybody a lot about what I've learned over the last couple of early years of predator hunting here.
So for a lot of guys, they might only have a select few months to hunt predators, but down in Pennsylvania, you can hunt predators year round, right?
Yeah, yep. We hunt coyotes year round. We have a falk season that comes in usually the end of October and goes out around the end of February, and then our bobcat season comes in uh, for hunting. Calling bobcats is usually like the second week of January. We get 2 weeks to try to call a bobcat in. They have a trapping season for bobcats, like 2 weeks prior to when our calling season comes in for bobcats.
Now, as far as calling the different predators, is there any difference in level of difficulty between bobcats and coyotes and fox?
Yeah, oh yeah, yep. I when I started out hunting, I would always just try to call in whatever. I mean, I'd
Right.
start off with great sounds and would be like, oh, I hope if a coyote comes in great, if a fox comes in, it's great, if a bobcat. But now learned that you can still do that, but I try to pinpoint if I'm going after coyotes, I'm strictly going after coyotes. If I'm going after fox, I mean, I don't try to make a mixed bag stand to try to get whatever I can get. I'm trying to pinpoint the animal that I want to call in. I seem like I have better success doing it that way. If I break it down, it just this is what I do for coyotes. This is what I do for fawks. I don't intermingle them.
So when you make a set for a coyote, what's the first step that you take to try calling a coyote?
I mean, scouting and knowing where the coyotes are. Like I do a lot of daytime, pretty much all daytime hunting anymore for coyotes, and that comes down to knowing where they're bedding up for the day. I mean, they're just kind of like deer. They'll go back to the same area and they'll bed up, and you'll find out year after year that certain areas will always hold coyotes. I got it's a big hollow up here. Calling it for about 5 years now and 6 years now, and I've killed 12 coyotes out of that hollow. And it's just one of those spots that there's always coyotes in there every year. So I mean, you got to find those spots when you hunt them in the daytime and try to slip in close to them where they're bedded up. That's the number one thing that you got to have the coyotes there to obviously to call them in. But I always start off when I go in and I get right in the woods with them, and like I always start off with vocals, just some non-aggressive howls, and I'm doing that for a couple reasons because that's when I call coyotes, fox, whatever, I'm trying to tell a story. So when you go in there and you howl right off the bat, you're letting any coyotes within earshot know that there's a coyote over there. And like I'll howl 2 or 3 times, and then I'll sit there and be patient for 3, 4, 5 minutes, and then I'll howl again another 2, 3, 4 howls, and then I'll sit for another 4 or 5 minutes. Uh, letting them howls soak into those coyotes' heads. And like this time of year, have their pups, and they're very as soon as they start denning, they're very territorial. You'd be surprised at how many times coyotes would just show up off of vocals because they don't want you in their area. They got pups they're trying to raise, and they don't want competition coyotes in there eating the food that they're trying to get for their coyotes. So a lot of times they just show up. But throughout the rest of the year, or the winter and stuff like that, I've had coyotes show up after doing that just to house, and I think they just do it for like either curiosity or like maybe companionship. You know what I mean? They're out by themselves, and maybe they're a pair running around, and they got split up when they were hunting throughout the night or something, and they hear the howls and they come in. I mean, the vocals. I've killed a lot of coyotes off of vocals, and then there's a lot of times. Sometimes you'll get them to respond back to you, and and that's when I'll try to figure out what's in there. If it sounds like there's an old like a big old male in there, maybe I'll get a little bit more aggressive back to him, like challenge howl. You know what I mean? I'll try to get him mad. But if it sounds like a lot of high pitch, maybe it's a female and stuff, I'll stay more low key and won't get as aggressive. So, but like after about the 10-minute mark, I'll switch into some type of prey sound. I use a lot of fawn distress year round. I usually don't run rabbits too much because everybody and their brothers run rabbits, and so but I'll run fawn distress for 8 to 10 minutes or so, and you'll have since the coyotes you started off howling, those coyotes have heard you howl, and they're if they don't show up, they know there's a coyote over there from you howling, then they hear a fawn dying or some type of distress, then you're adding to that story of making it a believable set. Now they heard these coyotes, now they hear something dying over there, and a lot of times that'll trigger them to come in. I mean, they might come in because they're hungry and they want to get whatever's dying, or they heard the howls and they heard something dying, so they're going to come investigate it. So, but after I do that for about 10 minutes or so, and then after that, I'll lead into like a pup distress or a coyote fight, and then you'll get quite a few show up then because they heard a coyote howling, they heard something dying, and then they heard like a fight. So it really tells a good story of getting into that coyote's mind and making him believe that there is actually something's actually going on over there. So that's pretty much. I mean, it varies, from your stand will change. You know what I mean? If the coyotes get vocal, you're going to change what you're doing. But that, like just a basic stand for me, that's what I'll run pretty much year round. So until breeding season, then I change it up with some breeding sounds and stuff. So
So as far as learning where the coyotes are, like, is there certain terrain features, cover types, stuff like that that coyotes usually key in on as far as where they're bedding up during the day?
I'm sorry, you cut out there. I couldn't hear you.
So as far as locating coyotes, like as far as where they like to hang out, where they're bedding down and stuff like
Mhm.
that, is there any specific types of terrain that you're looking for, or different types of cover that you're looking for?
I try to find really thick, hollows and steep rocky stuff.
Okay.
Uh, and like this time of year with it's hot, I'll try to key in on water sources like ponds or whatnot. You know what I mean? There's going to be a lot of their den sites will be around water. Where it's easy for them to come out and get drinks, take their pups down to the water, whatever.
Right.
Uh, I mean, and it'll change. I mean, I'll still be looking for rocky or thick stuff, but like when it gets in the wintertime, I'll try to find those ones that, they'll get baked in the sun all day long. They're where they can lay on a rock and, sun themselves or whatnot. So, and the coyotes are kind of like your house dogs. They'll take a nap for a while and then they'll get up and move around and then take another nap. You know what I mean? It's not like they're just sleeping all day long. So they're going to wake up hungry sometimes. So you can call them in if you can find spots of their bedding and get in close to them. You got really good chances of calling them in.
So, lost my train of thought. What I was going to ask you. Um, so basically, you're getting an idea where these coyotes are hanging. Year after year, I mean, they're kind of like deer as far as where they stay.
Yeah. Yep.
One
Yep.
year after another, they're going to be in the same area as long as that terrain and
Yeah.
cover features they stay the same.
Yep. Yeah. I don't know how many spots I know that I'm going to kill coyotes in there every year.
Right.
I might kill one, I might kill three or four. You know what I mean? It all depends on the population in the area, but I know that it's going to hold coyotes. And you can always, I'm always every time I go. Like I just had a lady get a hold of me. She's about a mile from me. She's been seeing four in her back field quite a bit. I'm assuming they're pups,
Right.
and so they probably have a den somewhere close. So I'm been trying to go down there and figure out that chunk of ground and where they're staying. You know what I mean? So you're always picking up new ground, and I'm always trying to figure out, you know, where the coyotes are at, and there's a lot of times you can look at maps, pull up. Like I use Onyx quite a bit, and you can be like, all right, there's some water there, and there's a nice, looks like a big hollow there. I'm definitely going to start there calling. So, and then there's a lot of times I'll get up and I'll go out an hour or so before daylight and do some howling and get the coyotes to respond back, and then look at the map on your phone or whatever, and be like, all right, these ones were howling over here in this place. These ones were howling over here, and then once it breaks daylight, go set up on them, and they were in that area not too long ago.
Now, do you find that when they've got their pups, they're a little bit easier to call in because they're
Oh,
looking harder for food?
yep, yeah. At this time of year is it's the easiest time of year to
Right.
call them in. They're so aggressive.
Yeah.
Uh, and it's like the howls will call them in because they don't want you there. You hit pup distress, I mean, they'll run you over sometimes.
Right.
I mean, and I mean, I set up in such thick stuff that like most of the time when the coyote comes in, they're already within 50 yards of me. It's far and few between, and I get to see one coming from 100 yards. So
Yeah.
I'm right in. I get right in there with them. And it seems like when you do that, when you get in that thick stuff with them, they kind of let their guard down a little bit. It's not like they're circling you 150 yards out in a wide open field like you see, out
Right.
west or whatever. I mean, they just usually just come blaring right in.
Yeah, it's almost like if you get in their bubble, so to speak.
Yeah, yep, you get in their comfort zone and
Yeah,
they're
because probably to them, if they didn't detect you and they've already they're already feeling safe because they're where they're comfortable. So
yeah,
it
yep,
makes sense that if you get within their comfort zone, they're gonna be a lot easier to call in.
yeah, yep. I mean, the coyotes are just like to me. I think they're kind of like a human. If someone's selling a hamburger 50 feet away, I'll get it before I walk 500 feet to buy the same hamburger. You know what I mean? So if you get in there closer, you can get to them. And now I still watch the wind, and I'll still set up, where I try to set up with a crosswind if I think where the coyotes are, and then I'll put the e-collar out 30, 40 yards out in front of me, and then 20, 30 yards up, like upwind of me. You know what I mean? So
Right.
even if they do, I can still shoot anything that comes with the e-collar, but if they circle downwind, they're going to be right in front of
Right. Now, do you use any decoying or anything? I know they make some decoys
you. Yeah,
for
I
predators.
don't. Yeah, I have one of them Montana decoys. It's like a flat, it unfolds, and it's a coyote. And I've never even tried it. I mean, I'm sure
No.
it would work,
Yeah.
but most of the time, most of the time the coyotes are already within range of shoot.
Right.
You know what I mean? So now I've had coyotes. Actually, I had a lucky duck call there. It's probably 2 years ago that it had the decoy on it, and you could turn it on and off with a remote. And I had a coyote come in. It was probably it was one of those stands I could see probably 90, 100 yards, and he come in about that far, and I could see him, and he was looking at the caller, so I just flicked the decoy on. I thought, there you go, you're gonna, what I mean, you see that movement, you hear that sound, there ain't no way you're not coming in. Then he come in probably another 20, 30 yards and stood there and watched, and then turned around and left. I never even got a shot at him. So, I mean, there's times I'm sure there's probably more times that'll work, but that was just one of them weird chances that it didn't work. But that was a long stand, and uh I went through doing because I if I know there's coyotes there, I'll go through crazy stuff. Like I was doing gray fox distress, and then leading into like a coon distress, making it sound like a gray fox and a raccoon were fighting. You know, so and that's what actually brought that coyote in.
Right.
So.
Yeah. I mean, as far as a decoy goes, it's probably just gives them more confidence if they see something that
Mhm.
looks like a prey animal.
Yeah, yep,
I
some type
know
of movement.
I've seen those ones where it looks like a rabbit or something and it moves around.
Yeah,
I mean, I
yeah, and
I've only ever tried calling in coyotes a few times, and I haven't had very much success doing it.
mm, yeah,
Well, I don't know
I'm
much
addicted.
about it.
Yeah, I'm addicted to it, and I go like I'll be going tomorrow morning. I go every chance I can go. I'll go like usually Saturday mornings. I'll go for a couple hours.
Hmm.
Every weekend. So.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing too. With you being able to hunt them year round, you get a lot more time to do it.
Yeah,
For
yep, and
us up
I got
here, guys that deer hunt, you know, they're gonna be deer
yeah, you
hunting until middle to end of January, and then you only get another 3 months to hunt. So you're
yeah,
hunting them in the winter time, which is
yeah.
as far as hunting in the winter time, like what's your approach during the winter?
I'll same thing. Like I said, I'll look for thick stuff but where even actually wide open hillsides, that are the sun's cooking, that's
Right.
hitting it 3/4 of the day. I'll sneak into those areas and call, and I'll still use vocals. I'll
Hmm.
open it up, letting them know that there's a coyote in the area, and like I said, I run fawn distress quite a bit,
Right.
the year round, and I've called them in with that, and but I try to how you want to say it. I try not to do. I don't know how to explain it. I try not to do as much prey distress. I try to stick with more vocals, I don't have a lot of luck with prey distress. So I'll drag, like in the wintertime, I'll drag a set out where I might howl on and off for 15, 20 minutes.
Right.
Until they get to the point to where they're like, I got to go check this out. I got to see what's going on.
Right.
So,
Coyotes they're very curious animals, so at
hmm
some point, if nothing else, it's gonna pique their curiosity to figure out what the hell's going on over there.
yeah, yep, where they're like, I got to come take a look. And I'll lead into like sometimes I'll lead into weird stuff like that gray fox. And like I said about calling that one in, it was in the wintertime with gray fox and raccoon. I just kept switching back and forth, but you know what I mean. And just stuff like that. I've actually called quite a few in on gray fox distress too. Wow, fox hunting because my fox hunting setup's kind of different. Like I'll start off with usually about 5 minutes of rabbit, and then I'll switch to about 5 minutes of bird. Then I'll switch to like 5 minutes of gray fox distress or some type of fox distress, and I'll pay attention to if I go out and make two sets and from both sets right off the bat the or like nothing comes into rabbit, but when I switch over to like woodpecker, that's when the fox come in. So the next set I'll start off with woodpecker. So I'm just trying to judge them what they're wanting to hear that night. You know what I mean? So,
Right.
but after there's been times I've run a whole set with rabbit and bird, and then switched to gray fox, and I've actually had coyotes show up. So they're there the whole time. They could hear it.
Right.
They didn't come into the prey sounds, but once they heard that gray fox, they're probably sitting there in their mind thinking, I just heard something dying down there. Now I hear a fox in distress. What I mean? I got to come. Maybe I can come in here and sneak that rabbit away, or actually, eat that fox. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's
Yeah.
what I think that coyote I called in with the gray fox and the raccoon. I think he was coming in to see if he could nab one of them for lunch.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Kind of seems like the same kind of theory when you're talking about calling turkeys. If you think about it,
Hmm.
because you might have birds silent. You might be using one particular call, and you say, well, I'm gonna try this one. Then all of a sudden, a bird lights up. That bird's
Yep.
been there the whole time. It's the
Yeah.
same
Yep. He
same
just.
thing. It's just they're waiting to hear what they wanted to hear.
Yep. Yep. You just gotta. And that's the same thing with predator hunting. You know what I mean? There's you just never know. And I have a buddy out in Montana. He's from Billings, and we talk quite a bit, and we discuss what's working for me or what's working for him. And it's amazing that how, like, I'll tell him something that worked for me here just like a couple days ago, and he'll try it. If he might be having a slow week or something out. You know what I mean? Where he'll try whatever I told him, and he kills coyotes doing it. And
Right.
then vice versa, he'd be like, "Here, dude, try this." You know what I mean? Like he got me into doing a lot of aggressive barks and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. If you have like really call shy coyotes, to go in there with a lot of aggressive barks, and what I mean, stay away from your prey sounds and aggressive howls and barks. And, I mean, really make it sound like there's a really mad coyote there. And I killed him doing that, and that's something that worked out the whole way across the country. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's funny to see how you can from that far apart do the same things and kill coyotes. You know what I mean? It's just
Right.
we've done that quite a bit.
So as far as that kind of calling, are you using diaphragm calls for that?
Yeah, I'll use diaphragms, and Foxborough has some really good aggressive barks. That you can add into like into your set.
Right. Right.
And there's a lot of times too. I'll use the diaphragms along with the e-collar too, like the Foxborough. And,
Mm-hmm.
I'll howl on it, and the e-collar be howling, and I'll howl on a diaphragm, and you sound like two coyotes,
Right.
and but there's space between them. You know what I mean? If you hit like a locator on your e-collar, all that sound's coming from one spot. So if you howl and with a diaphragm and howl on the e-collar, you got 30, 40 yards spaced out between you. So the sound's coming, it adds realism to your set. You got space and between the sounds. And there's times I'll howl with diaphragms, and then like I'll do the first 10 minutes of my set with just diaphragms, and then I'll switched the fawn distress out. You just added movement. You heard them howling over here. It's not a lot of movement, 30, 40 yards, but that's adding realism to your set. Now the sounds change to a different location, So, because they're like turkeys. They can
Oh
pinpoint
yeah.
exactly where they heard that sound coming from.
Yeah, I mean,
You know, like
coyotes, they got an incredible sense of smell,
best sight,
incredible
sight,
hearing,
hearing.
incredible
Yeah,
vision. I
yeah,
mean, they're just all around. They've got one hell of a set of senses, and
yeah,
that's what
yeah,
makes them
oh,
so hard to kill. They got
yeah,
everything working for them.
yeah. That's what a lot of guys ask me if I use scent control and stuff. I mean, I'll spray down. I'm not like, I'm not like not as much as I use more scent control for whitetail than I do for coyotes because you're not going to beat that coyote's nose. Now, but something do I do is if if the wind's not quite right, you know what I mean. If I can still call that area, but the wind's not exactly what I want, I'll spray like fox urine or coyote urine around the e-collar, like up on a tree or something. So when they get downwind of that call, it's not, if they're gonna if they might catch your wind trying to get downwind of the e-collar, then that's when I'll do that. That way, it kind of they still smell you, but it, it, it confuses them, I guess. You know what I mean? They're like, oh,
Yeah,
okay, it kind of blocks your scent a little bit.
right. It throws them off, so they smell
Yeah,
you, but they might think there might be another coyote there. A lot of
yeah, yeah,
guys
but
like using fox urine as a cover scent for even deer hunting.
yeah, yeah, same thing. They're still going to smell you, but it's gonna mess their smell up. With they're getting so many different scents coming in there that uh,
It just throws
might even
them
had
off long enough where you might be able to get a shot at them.
yeah, yeah, exactly. But if the wind's completely wrong, I don't even go. I don't even go in there. I think it was 2 years ago, 3 years ago. I knew there was just one big coyote in his hollow, and I kind of let him alone until the big Mosquito Creek coyote hunt down here. And I saw his tracks in there, and I'll set trail cameras up in areas too, just to try to catch them. And I'll put my buddy makes some good trapping bait, and I'll take some of his trapping bait and I'll put it out in front of the camera and let it sit in there for a week or so, and then I'll go back in and pull it, and that'll give you an idea of if there's actually anything in the general area. You know what I mean? Like if I get pictures of coyotes, I know there's some coyotes there, then I'll try to figure out, hey, they might be bedding up here in the daytime, they might be bedding up here. But this coyote it was a big coyote, and uh, I went to go call him during the big Mosquito Creek hunt, and the wind was just wrong. All for the 3 days, every time I went in there to try to call him, the wind was wrong. It was blowing right up the hall, and I'm like, there's no way I can call this. I don't have permission to be on top. There's a bunch of fields out towards the point. There's a bunch of fields, and I don't have permission to be up there, so I couldn't come in from the other direction. And so I'm like, oh man. Well, it was the next weekend after the hunt. I went in there and did some howling, and sure enough, he come running down in. I shot him about 70 yards. He was 52 pounds, I think he was. He was a
Wow,
big old boy,
it's a big
and I'm like,
coyote.
ah, yeah, yeah. And I'm like, oh, just I knew he was in there, and I was really confident I was going to be able to call him in during that big hunt. I just couldn't get in there because of the wind. I didn't want to ruin it for So sometimes you got to bite the bullet and let them go until you can actually get in there good.
Yeah, I'm sure some of those bigger coyotes are just like a big buck. They get into an area where they've got everything working for them to keep them safe.
Hmm. Yep, yep. And there's in that hall, a particular hall, there's an old pond in there, and it's thick. I mean, it's got everything that'll. I mean, I've seen some nice bucks in there. There's always turkeys in there. And there's spots. If you got deer and you got a lot of deer and a lot of turkeys and stuff, you're going to have coyotes there too. I mean,
Yes,
that's their part of their food chain.
right. Yeah, do you pretty much notice that if the deer herd kind of moves, the coyotes follow them?
uh, I've never really paid too much attention to that. And I'm sure they would. if they needed to,
Right.
But I mean, I don't really think our deer herds really move too much.
Right.
They're always, I have one guy, younger kid. They have a pile of ground, I don't even thousands of acres, and this one big chunk they manage for big whitetails. I mean, there's times I've walked out there coyote hunting. I can only coyote hunt there from from after New Year's until like September, and I can't. I'm not allowed to be in there. I got to stay out of there during deer season, pretty much archery season, rifle season, and then once late muzzleloader season's kind of out, then I can get in there and start calling again. But I mean, there's times I've walked in there that, man, it looks like elk out there. You know what I mean? There's some studs, bucks in there, but
Right.
he was having problems with coyotes, and he got a hold of me. He's like, "Yeah, can you come in and try to get some of these? Try to thin them out or get rid of them or whatever you got to do." And he's like, "We're getting just as many coyote pictures as we are deer pictures."
Yeah.
And I told him they have food plots and everything else, and I said, "Yeah," I said, "I'll do my best in getting them out of there, whatever I can get out." But I said, "Though, this going to probably or fill back up again." I said, you're doing all this stuff, which it's terrible, but you're doing all this stuff for the deer and the food plots and all the minerals and stuff." And I said, "That's just like a buffet line for predators." I said, "You got turkeys in there. All the other animals are going to go to that to eat, and it's going to hold coyotes in,
Yeah.
and
You're
you're
pulling
never
you're
going to
pulling
never
all the
get rid of them."
prey animals into one area.
Yeah, yep. You know, like I told you when we were before we started the podcast here, I was just telling you about them coyote pictures I got up here in one of my little food plots. There's
Right.
been does and fawns in there all the time, and sure enough, I had a picture of a red fox come through, and that the red fox come through in the daytime, and that coyote that was about 1 o'clock in the morning. It come through.
Hmm.
So
Now, as far as the times of day that you're hunting, are you going out before daybreak and pretty much, getting set up before it gets light and then starting to call when it gets daylight?
yeah, I'm usually getting in. Uh, I usually start walking in when you can start seeing in the woods.
Okay.
Unless I know the area good, I'll go in a little bit before. But if it's a newer area, or I'm trying to figure out you know, if, I want to kind of see where I'm getting set up.
Right.
If you walk in there at night, you're already in the woods, and you just pick a tree. You don't know what you're going to have to see. You know what I mean? So I kind of wait for it to get a little bit daylight and sneak in there. Yeah, I'm pretty much stalking in there. I'm not just walking in and making noise. I'm sneaking. You know what I mean? Because
Right.
I'm trying to get as close to them as I can. Last year, it was towards the end of summer. I knew there was coyotes in this one area. I snuck down in there, and it was probably actually about an hour and a half or so after daylight. I made two sets before that, and then I went down into this big hollow, and I got down in there and I did some howling. And man, there was a bunch of them that they cut loose, and they were probably only within 150 yards of me. And I'm like, "Oh man, this is gonna be good." So I kind of sat there and I waited a little bit, and probably actually only 2 or 3 minutes, and I seen two coyotes coming in, and the one come in and stopped about 50 yards, the other one come in and stopped about 25 or 30 or so. Well, I shot the very farthest one, and it was out there spinning, and like I did, it fell over. Well, the other one was still standing there looking back at that one, so I dumped him at like 30 yards. Well, uh, I hit the wrong preset on my Fox Pro. I usually had the preset of like Coyote Pup number 3. Well, I had it as Nutty Nuthatch, and I hit the wrong one. Well, as soon as I hit that, another coyote come running in. He come in about 40 yards, and I don't know how in the heck, but I missed him. And we're only allowed to have 3 shells in our gun here in Pennsylvania.
Right.
And well, I that coyote I missed, it kind of turned and ran, and it actually come closer to me and was starting to come. At one point, it was probably about 15 feet from me, and I'm trying to reach in my bag to grab another shell, and it saw me. Well, it turned around and started running. Well, I grabbed the shell out of my bag, threw it in my gun real quick, and it stopped. I got it to stop out there probably 50, 60 yards, and I dumped it. And when I turned back around, there was another coyote out in front of me, and I'm like, holy rip, my gun's freaking empty again. So I shot three of them, but the first one I shot that was spinning, it must have got up and ran off. I found blood and stuff. Like I couldn't find that one, but I did get a double, with the shotgun double doing it that. But that was just all off of vocals, pretty much,
Right.
But that's just because I was set up so close to them.
You think they pretty much were like thinking there was an intruder in the area, and that's why they
Yeah,
came in heavily?
yeah, yeah. At
Yeah.
them first two come running in there to kick some butt.
Right.
They were, um, and I'm sure the third one, when I accidentally switched over to prey sound, the nutty nuthatch, it's like, oh, there's something over here dying. I already know two of my buddies are over here. I'm going to come in there and try to get this.
Right.
But yeah, I'm firm believer that they come in to kick that coyote's butt.
Yeah.
The first when they heard howling.
Well, they're very territorial, right?
Yeah, it'll
That's what
change
they're in
throughout
and
the
out the
year.
time
Like,
of year.
yeah, and coyote, I believe coyotes are like humans. You're going to have really aggressive ones. You're going to have
Right.
loudmouth ones. You're going to have shy ones. So, it's all you find one of them aggressive ones. They're the ones that are going to run you over. Like those two that I caught in first there, after the howls, they were probably aggressive. In my mind, they were aggressive coyotes. They come running in to kick someone's butt. You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
I'd like to switch gears a little bit and talk about your approach for hunting fox.
mhm.
How
Yeah,
how does that differ from coyotes?
I stick like I fox hunt at night. I've been
Okay.
wanting to for the last couple of years try to figure out how to hunt them in the daytime, and that's I think I'm just gonna have to hunt them kind of like I do coyotes, just get in the woods. But I'm always if you can find a standing cornfield, I'll guarantee you at night there's a gray fox in it.
Okay.
You know, I'll put money on it.
Why is
Or
that?
even just because of all the mice and
Okay.
rabbits and
Okay.
everything that's in their feet. And they'll bed up in there, and coyotes will do the same thing. And that's actually not to jump back into coyotes, but like once the corn starts getting waist high, chest high,
Yeah.
coyotes will bed up in the corn too because it stays damp and cooler in there.
Right.
Because there's so much cover. So, but yeah, and even for gray fox, we have a lot of gray fox around here, way more than red fox, and them things can be. It's hard to even say what to look for because they could be anywhere. You can find thick spots. And I'll call a lot of old logging roads and woods. What I mean? I'll find an old logging road or even like a 4-wheeler trail and just sit down on it and with a shotgun and sit there and start calling. They'll most of the time they'll come running right down that path, the old logging road or whatever. You can. If I head over towards State College Way, it's so much farm fields over there and hardly any woods. You just go from field to field to field calling until one hears you. So
Right.
it's hard to, for me, it's hard to pinpoint a exact thing to do for fox. It's just cover with coyotes. I like to make uh, less stands, but better quality stands. And where I know there's coyotes there with fox, I just try to bust out as many stands as I can get. 15 minutes and then I'm up and gone. 15, you know what I mean?
Do
Just
you think
covering ground.
a lot of that's because the number of fox is less?
Uh, I don't know if it's, I think we have more of a fox population here
Okay.
than we do coyotes, but they can be anywhere. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Right. They wander more
So,
than anything.
yeah, I'm sure if I'd have to figure them out in the daytime, I'm sure
Yeah.
it would change in the daytime, but,
Right.
it's, I can't sit there and tell you, find, if you can find crab apples, like an old crab apple orchard, or even an old apple orchard, there'll be fox in there. But, it's just one of those. They're just anywhere. I think there's so many of them, they might just be everywhere. But
Yeah.
I
Right.
found cornfields, and they love cornfields. There's you hear one of them things running through the cornfield, it sounds like a bear coming
Huh.
because they just run into stuff. You know what I mean? You can
Right.
hear them coming through the corn. But they're fun. Fox is fun. I didn't get out as much as I used to. I don't fox hunt much anymore. I mean, I'll go out a handful of times, and it's just coyote hunting is kind of my thing now. I'd rather get up. I don't like staying up late anymore. I used to fox until 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. Now 10 o'clock comes around, I'm ready for bed. So I'd rather get up and go coyote hunting. Bobcats, that's just thick. I try to find the thickest, nastiest stuff, and they're hard. I call them handful in the daytime. Most of them I've been out of season, and you just gotta sit there and watch them. But it's hard to call them in even at night. You have to find a place to field where you can see, and they don't want to break cover too off.
Yeah, yeah. From what I can tell, they're very skittish.
They lose interest
Right.
quick too. You know what I mean?
I had one. I was sitting deer hunting years ago. In our area, they're not very common. I had to walk up to him one day, and I just saw his tail flick first. My first thought was it was a deer. I just seen a flash of the tail. And next thing you know, there's a freaking cat standing there, bobcat standing there. I was like, holy crap, I've never seen one in my life before. And here's this bobcat standing there.
Yeah.
It must have spotted me because as soon as I could see its face looking at me, it turned around and took off.
They got good eye. They don't care about your scent, but
Right,
they got good eyesight, and
right.
you know. Yeah, but we don't have the population is slowly getting. You know, you might call. I might call 2 or 3 in a year. But I think that stems from uh, like being in thick stuff. Where they like thick stuff too. I've done. I've tried tracking them things too, and I would track them, and then about every 800 to 1,000 yards, I'd set up and call for a half hour, 45 minutes, and if nothing come in, I'd stay on their tracks, track them. I used to do that for coyotes quite a bit, too, just starting when I was starting off, and uh, I'd try to find a fresh track and just keep following it and calling every 1,000 yards, until you either, I bumped a lot of them. You'd be tracking them, and you'd bump them off the ridges, where they're bedded up and stuff. And another thing, too, another little tip. I don't know how much people up there, do deer drives or pushes or for bear or whatnot, but I always pay attention to where guys, say, oh yeah, we pushed this off for bear, and this hollow, and we kicked all we got out of there. We kicked out 2 coyotes, or we drove this off for deer and we kicked out a coyote.
Right.
And well, that's telling me that that section is coyotes are bedding up in there. You know what I mean? So that's another way I just kind of a way of scouting. Be like, oh, okay, you guys did that. All right, I'm gonna slip in there in a couple weeks, and try to do some coyote hunting because obviously they're staying in that area somewhere. So,
Yeah, I mean, pretty much any time you're hunting, you could be scouting for a different game animal that you want to hunt, anyways.
yeah, yeah, that's I'm like I said, every weekend I'm out coyote hunting, and I'm looking for turkeys and deer, everything. You know what I mean? So when deer season gets here, I know where I've seen some nice bucks or where they're running or turkeys. I'll go coyote hunting. Before turkey season, and I don't know how many times you'll hit some howls and there'll be turkeys gobbling all over. You know what I mean? So you're like, all right, I know where you. I'll see you guys here in a couple weeks.
Right. I remember one year I gave it a shot trying to call coyotes. I had just one of the small Primos electronic callers.
Hmm.
I hit the coyote howl on it, and the woods lit on fire, man. Gobbles from you know all over the place. They went nuts.
Yeah,
Never called any coyotes, but of course
we got the turkey.
I'm kind of clueless about calling coyotes.
Hmm.
I mean, I know a little bit more now, but going into it not knowing really how to do it's tough.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of things that go. I mean, you got to have the coyotes there.
Right.
And as far as me, I don't know how. I'm not a firm believer that our coyotes here in Pennsylvania will travel that far. Like my buddies, like in Montana and stuff, where they'll get up where they can see a mile, mile and a half.
Right.
And they'll see coyotes coming. They'll be glassing with their binoculars, and they'll see coyotes coming. And he has videos, and he tells me all the time that they'll get into a stand and do some vocals, and the coyotes start howling, and he'll find them in his binoculars, and he'll watch them. He'll
Right.
flip through sounds. He'll try to do a set, normal set on them, and he kind of does the same thing. We kind of both call the same way. Uh, he'll watch them through his binoculars, and
Right.
he'll just keep changing sounds till something, till they all perk up. You know what I mean?
Right. Well,
And
that's the
he's
big
like, "Oh, that's
difference
working."
with
Yeah,
hunting here and hunting in the Midwest, or not the Midwest, but out west. You can watch an animal and see what their reaction is.
yeah,
Here,
yeah,
oh, you're lucky if you can see 100 yards in the woods
yeah,
sometimes.
yeah. And me and his name's Steve Monson. He's pretty good, really good friend, and we were on Predator Quest, a TV show together. For with Les Johnson there for quite a few years, and he we talk about that all the time. And I wonder how many times I'm out there calling, and I got a coyote, 600, 800 yards or whatever,
Right.
and he's just sitting there. You know what I mean? I just wonder how many times that goes through my mind all the time now when I'm calling. I wonder if one's just sitting there listening, doesn't want to move.
Not only
So
that, you never know if you got one coming in, getting close enough, and he could be standing there somewhere watching you, and you may not even
yeah,
see him. You get up to
yep,
leave, and you never knew he was there.
yep, yep. There's been times that I've walked out in the snow. We've had, when we had snow, and I've walked out, and I'll be like, I know for a fact those coyote tracks weren't there
Right.
when I come in. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So, and I've actually seen them where they have like kind of like come in backdoored me, because I try to watch even when I walk, how I get into a set, so their coyotes aren't going to cut my tracks walking in and catch my scent that way.
Right.
And I've seen in the snow, what I mean, where they've come in that way, and as soon as they get to where your boot prints are in the snow, there you can see the snow kicked up, and they turn around and got out of there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, yeah. But I when my buddy in Montana keeps bugging me. I mean, they go out, and him and his brother go out, and I mean, they kill 13, 15 coyotes a weekend. You
Right.
know what I mean? When they go out, or so my one buddy, he's from Montana too. He's from Drummond's, Matt Pipa. He was the head pro staff Predator Quest. His record for one day out there was he killed 19 coyotes in one day. And I'm like, I don't even take that many shells with me.
Right.
You know what I mean? I take like 4 or 5, and so
Now out there, can you hunt coyotes pretty much all year too?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You don't even need a hunting license out
Right.
there.
Right. That's
You
the one
know.
thing that sucks about New York is not being able to hunt them all year round.
Yeah, I can't understand that. Why they
Yeah.
wouldn't?
You
That
know,
makes no sense to me.
New York is their game management is subpar to say the least.
Yeah,
They issue too many deer tags. They don't allow you to coyote hunt year round. You got so many things that are detrimental to
against you.
the deer herd. First of all,
Yep.
the number of nuisance permits they give out, and it's just
Mm,
unbelievable. A lot of that. There's theories that as car insurance companies, they're pressuring them to issue more tags because they're tired of paying out insurance claims.
yeah.
Which could be a lot of it. These outside forces that influence your lawmakers.
Yeah. Yep.
That all influences
Yeah.
how game management policies are set.
Yeah. Well, I think they're all, even Pennsylvania's that way. I mean, as soon as the rut gets going good here, our archery season goes out.
It's the
You
same
know what
way
I mean?
here.
And then and then you got a couple weeks, and then rifle season starts.
Right.
And then even spring gobbler. They're half the times their spring gobblers almost they're breeding. They're pretty much done breeding by the time the season starts. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like, man, why don't you move it back a couple weeks,
Right.
or let us archery hunt another week longer.
Right. The only
Except for I mean, we get times when the rut kicks in a little bit earlier than kind of normal. And it's pretty good archery hunting. But
right.
it
And
always
that's
seems like the
always hit or miss too. You know, so I mean, my theory on the rut is it happens, same time every year. It just depends on
mm,
your weather, whether you're not going to see that kind of activity during the day or not.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah,
we our state's broken up into the northern and southern zone. Southern zone, the bow season starts October 1st and it runs until the third week in November. And then you have like
mm,
a 21-day gun season. Gun
okay.
season is pretty much right in prime time of the rut,
Uh, huh.
which,
See, they have our archery season goes out, and then there's like a week or so, and then there's a week of bear season,
okay,
and I get kind of irritated because I shouldn't say get irritated, but you get groups of 20, 25 guys out there pushing.
right.
And, so whatever deer you thought you had scouted out, like, all right, I'll
Long
try to
gone.
get him in rifle season. Yeah, he might be pushed to a whole other county now.
Hmm.
And then after that week of rifle bear season, then our normal rifle deer season comes in. So,
You can't hunt on Sundays either, right?
uh, you can coyote and fox hunt.
Okay,
You just can't like any type of big game animals or
right.
you can get whatever sports, whatever they call them.
Yeah.
You can't turkey hunt. Well, they finally started where, you know, like our rifle season always used to start on a Monday.
Right. It was the same way
And
here.
well, they changed it a couple years ago, 2 or 3 years ago now, with where it started on Saturday. So you could hunt Saturday, you couldn't hunt Sunday, and then back into hunting. And then this year, I believe this year was the first year they did it Saturday and Sunday.
Hmm.
Now I think I can't remember if there was an archery one Sunday in archery season you could hunt. No,
That whole no
I just
hunting
think
on
they should.
Sunday thing, man, that sucks. I mean, we can hunt every day
Yeah,
up here,
yeah.
but I just
Well,
can't.
I would.
Anybody that I've talked to since I started doing this podcast, Maine, Jersey, Pennsylvania, Maryland, can't hunt on Sundays. Just
Hmm.
like that just is mind blowing to me because everybody, for the most part, that has a job.
Yeah, you
They're
got
off
those
on the
2 days
weekends.
off.
You get to hunt one day, and then you pretty
Yeah,
much go back to work on Monday. You can't do any hunting on Sundays.
yeah.
That
And
sucks.
we ran into. I know a lot of people complain here because they that's their time to get out in the woods,
Right,
and do their hiking and this and that.
right,
And it's like it would if you were, if they would just take rifle season, that's only 2 Sundays, you know, so that you couldn't walk in the woods. But in my opinion, they should let it up to the landowner. Like if I wanted to archery hunt or rifle hunt on my own ground on a Sunday, I should be able to do that. You know what I mean?
right.
So if you owned a bunch of ground and it would be up to you. Be like, no one's hunting on my ground on Sunday. You know what I mean? Like
That's
leave it
how
up
it
to
should
the,
be.
the landowner.
I mean, as far as the public lands go, I don't even agree with saying you can't hunt on Sundays on public land either
Yeah.
because it's public
Yep.
land.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. But like I said, I'd just be happy
Right.
if they would make it's up to the landowner.
If
So
you pay taxes on a piece of property and they're telling you that you can't use it for what you want to use it for.
yeah, exactly. Yep. But hopefully that gets changed.
Yeah,
So
well, I think there's a lot of pressure coming from hunters that are trying to get that stuff changed.
hmm
It takes
yeah,
time for stuff like that to change, but eventually it will.
yeah. And our license numbers and stuff have been slowly dropping
So
here.
far,
But I think the numbers would pick back up if they would let you hunt on Sundays all the time.
of course,
Because people would be like, "Oh, I can hunt 2 days instead of just one. I'll get my license." Or
right? What's the
uh,
sense in buying a deer tag if you only can hunt 3 times?
yeah, yep, yep.
You may not
Uh,
be able to take a week off from work.
yeah, exactly. Yep. Uh, I could take off. I'm pretty lucky. I can take off whatever I need to. But I
Right,
don't usually don't. I try to get it done. I try to fill all my tags in archery season because
right.
I like rifle hunting, but there's just so many people out there. It's just like
Yeah,
I'd rather try to get them done in archery season, and that way I'm done.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about Pennsylvania, I mean, everybody talks about the Orange Army. It's
Oh yeah,
it's as bad as what they say it is as far as the number of hunters.
oh yeah, it's terrible. You can't go anywhere without seeing orange usually. You
Right,
know what I mean?
right. I
That's what.
noticed that, like I was telling you before, I drive a truck and I take 81 down through Pennsylvania, and along 81 there's a lot of state game lands, and
Mhm.
trucks pulled over on the side of the road up and down that highway. You know that
Yeah.
they're in there hunting, obviously.
Oh, yep, exactly. Yep. Yeah. It's that's what we. My other buddy Matt People there from Montana. Montana, big state as they are, they just finally broke 1 million people in population.
Yeah,
And he's like, you guys have more people hunting on the first day of rifle season in Pennsylvania than we have in total population in
right,
Montana. You
right.
know what I mean? So, yeah, I'm just like, man. Uh, I grew up, uh, out in the middle of nowhere. It was about a mile long dirt road, and there was my closest neighbor, actual person that lived there all the time, was like a mile away, and there was like 7 camps around my parents' house. You know what I mean? So it was, those guys hardly ever come up until rifle season or turkey season, and you'd be out there hunting, and they just showed. It'd be the first day of spring golf, where you got these all, turkey scouted out, and these guys show up Friday night, and the next thing you know, they're, screwing your hunt up because they had no idea. You know what I mean? So it get frustrating that way too with so many hunters.
Right.
So
Is there a lot less bow hunters?
yeah, yeah, there's no, I would say there's about the same. There's less. There's definitely less bow hunters, but there's still a lot.
Right.
But you don't. It's far and few between when you run into, like, there's about 1,000 acre chunk of game lands here, not too far from my place, and I've been back in there, and you don't really. There's trucks parked there, but you don't really run into too many people. You might run into them before daylight in the morning or after
Right.
dark. But
Right.
it's far and few between that you run into people. But I usually bow hunt here at my place or out at my parents' house out there. And almost everybody at those camps, they don't archery hunt. So.
Pretty much just come up for the gun season. That's kind of the same
Hmm.
way here. I mean, as far as bow hunters, if I run into another bow hunter, it's like a shock.
Yeah.
During
Yeah.
gun season, it's a whole nother story, but you just try to get away from it as much as you can.
Yeah. Yep. I always try to find a spot where the deer are going to run to. Once they start getting pressure, and then I try to get in there way before daylight. That way
Right.
anybody else walking in there is pushing deer my way, or once they start banging at them, they're going to try to come to this cover. So
Yeah, a lot of
yeah,
times
sometimes.
guys don't want to walk a long way, so if you can outwalk another hunter, good
Yeah.
anyways.
Yep. Exactly.
Oh, we've been on
Yeah.
for
I'm
a
trying to.
little over an hour, so we'll wrap this up.
Oh, all right. Yeah. Yeah. I said, you guys, I don't know, they can, anybody listening or anything can find me on Facebook at Jerry Lannen or anything like that. If you got any questions, or they can even get a hold of Brian there, and he can give you the right direction and get a hold of me if you have any predator hunting questions or anything, any help, anything you need a hand with.
Yeah, I'll link your Facebook page and everything in the description on the podcast
Mm,
episode, so everybody can check you out, and if they want to reach out to you or anything, they can.
yeah.
All that stuff
Yeah. I
will be
love,
right in the show notes.
oh, good. Yeah. I love, I get it. I killed enough of them. I still love hunting them, but I like, talking to people, and then, you know, a couple weeks later, like, hey, I did this and I killed one. You know what I mean? So I get more enjoyment out of that anymore than I do killing them. You know what I mean? So, but
Yeah, that's why I'm doing the podcast. I want to try to get guys on here that have experience in different stuff that I don't have experience in, so help people
hmm
learn and learn myself.
yeah,
Never stop learning.
yeah, No, never. Nope. Every day is a new day to learn.
That's right.
So, but, well, yeah, well, good. I appreciate it, and like I said, I hope everybody can learn something from it, or at least picked up on something. So, and it can change in an instant too. You know, I mean, it's
Yeah.
hunting. It's I can sit here and tell you what to go do, and you can go out there and hit the wrong button on your e-collar and call one in. You
Right.
know what I
Right.
mean? So it's just one of those being in the right spot at the right thing. You just never know what can happen. I mean, it helps. It helps if you do your scouting and there's coyote there. I mean, you're going to obviously up your odds quite a bit. So I
Right.
used to just blind call all the time when I started out. Like I'm just going to go call here. I'm going to go call here, and I didn't even know if there's coyotes there. And then it finally dawned on me. It's like, you dumbass, you should probably make sure there's coyotes here. You'd have a
Right.
lot better chances. So, but, so all right. Well, I appreciate it. Like I said, if anybody can get a hold of me, and I'll gladly answer or help out any way I can.
Okay. Sounds good.
But,
All right. Thanks. Have a good one,
yep,
Jerry.
yep. You too.